So would you like to explain why one of my brightest students is breaking into my office?
I can explain. My teammates removed my name from the paper.
I'll help you investigate this, if you'll do something for me.
What?
This Saturday, I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend at my parents' family dinner.
Excuse me?
Hello everyone, welcome to Vivian Seoul Love. This is where we make interesting stories between Black women and Korean men. Don't forget to tell us where you're watching from and subscribe to our channel.
The soft click of the office door locking behind her sounded much louder than Tracy Cobbs had expected. She stood perfectly still for a heartbeat, listening. Nothing. No footsteps echoed through the nearly deserted faculty building. The afternoon sun spilled through the hallway windows, painting long golden rectangles across the polished floor outside. Most professors had already left after submitting final grades for the week, and the campus had settled into an unusual calm. Tracy released the breath she'd been holding. "So far, so good," she whispered. At 24, Tracy had never imagined that her final semester in South Korea would end with her breaking into her supervisor's office. Yet here she was. She wasn't a criminal. She wasn't even the type to cheat. If anything, she had spent the last 4 years working twice as hard as everyone else just to prove she belonged. As one of the few Black American international students in the university's business program, she had dealt with curious stares, awkward questions, and classmates who underestimated her intelligence until she consistently outperformed them. That was why discovering her name had mysteriously disappeared from her capstone project had nearly broken her. The project represented 4 exhausting months of research, sleepless nights, and endless revisions. She had completed nearly half the work herself while her 3 teammates contributed the bare minimum. When the final paper was submitted that morning, one of her friends had casually texted her a screenshot. Her name was gone. Completely erased from the cover page. At first, Tracy had assumed it was a formatting mistake. Then her teammates stopped answering her calls. One even blocked her. By the time she confronted another group member outside the library, he merely shrugged and told her, "Since you're graduating and leaving anyway, we figured one less name wouldn't matter." She had nearly punched him. Instead, she stormed away before her temper got the better of her. The paper was already sitting inside Professor Ji Min-young's office. If she could simply write her name back onto the printed submission before he reviewed it, maybe everything could still be fixed. She knew it was foolish. She knew it could cost her graduation. But panic had a way of convincing people that desperate choices were reasonable. She hurried toward the large mahogany desk. Everything in the office reflected Professor Ji Min-young's personality: neatly stacked books, perfectly aligned folders, a spotless computer monitor, and a single bonsai tree resting beside the window. The room carried the faint scent of cedarwood and coffee. She spotted the capstone paper almost immediately. "There you are." Her pulse quickened. She picked up the red pen lying beside it, carefully opened the cover page, and stared at the empty space beneath the names of her teammates. A space where hers should have been. She swallowed hard. "This is my work too." With a shaky hand, she slowly wrote, "Tracy Cobbs." She had barely finished the last letter when she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching the office. Her heart stopped. No. The footsteps grew closer. Then came the metallic click of a key sliding into the lock. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." The doorknob turned. The door swung open. Standing in the doorway was Professor Ji Min-young. Tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit with his sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms, the young professor looked as though he'd stepped out of a magazine rather than a university faculty meeting. His sharp features remained calm, though surprise flickered briefly across his face as his dark eyes took in the scene before him. His gaze traveled from Tracy to the open paper to the red pen still clutched in her hand. Silence stretched between them. Tracy forced a smile that looked more painful than friendly. "Oh." She gave an awkward little wave. "Hi, Professor." Ji Min slowly closed the office door behind him. "I wasn't expecting company." "Funny," Tracy replied nervously. "Neither was I." One perfectly shaped eyebrow lifted. "You broke into my office." "I prefer the term unexpected visitor." His expression remained unreadable. "You are holding my pen." She immediately placed it back on the desk. "Borrowing." "You altered an official academic document." "I was correcting a mistake." Professor Ji Min folded his arms across his chest. "And you thought breaking into my office was the best solution?" When you say it out loud, Tracy muttered, it sounds worse. It is worse. She sighed dramatically. I know how this looks. It looks exactly like what it is. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Ji-min stepped closer to the paper and looked at the name she had written. Tracy Cobbs. He glanced back at her. You have very neat handwriting. She blinked. That's not the reaction I was expecting. No? I expected you to yell, maybe call campus security or possibly expulsion. Instead, he studied her face with quiet intensity before asking in an even voice. Tell me the real reason. The humor drained from Tracy's expression. For the first time since entering the office, she looked genuinely defeated. And Professor Ji-min noticed. For several long seconds, Tracy simply stared at Professor Ji-min Young. The fight that had carried her into his office drained away all at once. She looked down at the paper on his desk, then at the neat letters of her own name, before letting out a slow breath. You really want to know why? She asked quietly. I wouldn't have asked otherwise, Ji-min replied. She gave a short, humorless laugh. I don't know whether to tell the truth or come up with a really creative lie. I recommend the truth. It's less entertaining. I'm willing to take that risk. Tracy rubbed her forehead, suddenly exhausted. My teammates removed my name. His expression didn't change. They submitted the paper without me. I know. She blinked. You know? I noticed the missing name this morning. Her eyes widened. And you didn't think that was strange? I did. So why didn't you say anything? Ji-min leaned lightly against his desk. Because I wanted to understand why one of the strongest students in my department suddenly disappeared from a project she practically led. Tracy's mouth slowly fell open. You knew I did most of the work? I supervised the project. His tone remained calm. I read every progress report. I watched every presentation. I know who carried the workload. She stared at him. So you knew they stole my credit? I suspected. And instead of calling them in, I wanted evidence. Tracy dropped into the chair opposite his desk without asking permission. I have evidence. He nodded. I assumed you would. She pulled out her phone so quickly she almost dropped it. I have every draft. She opened folder after folder. My research notes. The spreadsheets. The interviews. The version history. The messages where they thanked me for writing entire sections. She pushed the phone toward him. And this. A group chat filled the screen. One message from the night before read. Don't worry. Once we remove Tracy's name, she won't have enough time to fight it before grading. Ji-min quietly read the conversation from beginning to end. When he looked up, there was something colder in his eyes than before. I see. They thought because I'm an international student I'd just give up. They were mistaken. I know I shouldn't have come in here. No. I panicked. I believe you. She looked at him carefully. You do? You've never had a disciplinary issue. He folded the papers neatly. You attend every seminar. You ask too many questions. She smiled faintly. I've noticed. You've submitted every assignment early. And, he continued, I've never known you to avoid difficult work. The compliment caught her off guard. Thank you. Silence settled between them. Tracy finally asked the question weighing on her mind. So? He looked at her. Am I expelled? One corner of his mouth twitched. No. Suspended? No. She frowned. So what's the punishment? Ji-min was quiet for several seconds. Then he walked to the window overlooking the campus. Students crossed the courtyard below, laughing as though the world contained no complications at all. Without turning around, he said, My parents are hosting a family dinner this Saturday. Tracy frowned. Congratulations. He turned to face her. They've been trying to arrange my marriage for 2 years. Okay. They believe that because I'm 31, unmarried, and financially stable, I'm running out of time. Tracy couldn't stop herself. 31? Yes. You look younger. I'll take that as a compliment. She grinned despite herself. Then her smile disappeared. What does any of this have to do with me? Ji-min met her gaze. I need someone to convince them I'm already seeing someone. Her eyes narrowed. No. I haven't finished. I don't need you to. I want you to attend the dinner as my date. Silence. Absolute silence. Then Tracy laughed. Not a polite laugh. A loud, disbelieving laugh that echoed through the office. Oh, that's good. She wiped at the corner of one eye. For a second I thought you were serious. I am. She laughed even harder. Oh, you're serious. His face remained perfectly composed. She stood. No. I'll investigate the misconduct, restore your academic credit if the evidence confirms what you've shown me, and I won't report today's break-in. She folded her arms. That sounds suspiciously like blackmail. I prefer mutually beneficial negotiation. I prefer prison. I doubt that. She pointed toward the door. You've completely lost your mind. So that's a no? It is a spectacular no. Ji-min nodded once as though he had expected that answer. I see. He picked up the evidence folder she'd shown him and placed it neatly beside the capstone paper. Then I suppose I'll have to convince you. Tracy narrowed her eyes. I'm not changing my mind. A calm smile spread across his face. We'll see. For the first time since she'd been caught in his office, Tracy wasn't thinking about the stolen project anymore. She was trying to figure out whether her young professor was the most composed man she'd ever met or the craziest. Tracy marched out of Professor Ji-min Young's office with her chin held high, determined to prove that no amount of persuasion could make her agree to his ridiculous proposal. By the time she reached the faculty building entrance, however, her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen. Professor Ji-min Young. She groaned dramatically. Seriously? The message was painfully short. Please come back. This discussion isn't finished. She rolled her eyes so hard she nearly gave herself a headache. It is for me. She hit send before slipping her phone into her pocket. 3 seconds later it buzzed again. I have already contacted the department chair about your project. She stopped walking. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. What? His reply came almost instantly. Come back. Fine. 5 minutes later, Tracy was back in his office, though this time she made a point of leaving the door wide open. I'm only here because you mentioned my project. Ji-min looked up from his laptop. I assumed as much. She folded her arms. I'm still not fake dating you. I know. You know? I expected the refusals. She couldn't help huffing a laugh. You're impossible. So I've been told. He closed the laptop and slid a folder across the desk. I've already reviewed the digital submission records. Tracy leaned forward. The university system automatically logs who uploads each version. Her eyes widened. And? Your teammate Park Min-soo uploaded a draft containing your name 4 days ago. She blinked. He what? Ji-min opened another document. The final version submitted this morning is identical except for one detail. He tapped the first page. Your name was removed. A wave of relief rushed through Tracy so suddenly that she had to grip the chair to steady herself. She laughed once, but it sounded more like disbelief than amusement. I knew I wasn't imagining things. Ji-min's voice softened. You weren't. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then Tracy quietly admitted, I was terrified. He looked at her. I've worked too hard for this degree. I know. I kept thinking, what if nobody believed me? They will. His confidence was so matter-of-fact that she found herself believing him. He continued, the department chair has already agreed to open an academic misconduct investigation. Her shoulders sagged with relief. So I'm not going to fail? No. I'm still graduating? If the evidence holds, yes. She smiled for what felt like the first genuine time all week. Thank you. You don't need to thank me. I do. He shook his head. I'm simply doing my job. She tilted her head. You really are annoyingly honorable. I've heard that too. She laughed. Who keeps telling you these things? My grandmother. I like her already. You probably would. The words slipped out so naturally that both of them paused. Ji-min cleared his throat. Speaking of my family. She pointed a warning finger at him. Don't even think about it. I wasn't. You absolutely were. I merely remembered Saturday. There is no Saturday. There will be. She sighed dramatically. You really don't give up. My parents don't either. She blinked. Fair point. Ji-min walked toward the bookshelf and picked up a framed family photograph. He handed it to her. Against her better judgment, Tracy looked. The picture showed Ji-min standing stiffly beside an elegant older couple dressed in expensive traditional Korean attire. Seated in the center was a smiling elderly woman whose eyes sparkled with mischief. They look nice. My grandmother is. And the others? My parents are complicated. She studied the photo. They look rich. They are. Like rich. My father owns several hotel chains. Tracy nearly dropped the frame. I'm sorry. He also serves on the university's board of trustees. She stared at him. Wait. You understand my hesitation now. Her mouth opened. Then closed. Then opened again. So your parents are trying to set you up with daughters from wealthy families. Correct. And saying no hasn't worked. They're persistent. So your brilliant solution was to drag your stubborn student into this? A tiny smile appeared on his face. So you know. He chuckled softly. It was the first time Tracy had heard him laugh. The sound surprised her. It transformed him from the intimidating young professor everyone admired into someone warmer, almost approachable. For a split second, she forgot he was her supervisor. Then she caught herself. This is still a terrible idea. Ji-min nodded. It is. So why me? The smile faded. He looked directly into her eyes. Because you're the only person I trust to make them pause and leave me alone. She frowned. You barely know me. I know enough. You know I argue and say whatever comes into my head. I've noticed. She sighed. That's exactly why this would end in disaster. Or success. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A new email notification appeared. Academic Affairs Office. Subject _ formal investigation into group project submission. Tracy's heart pounded as she opened it. The investigation had officially begun. Her name would be reviewed. She slowly lowered the phone. You really kept your word. I said I would. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, very quietly, she asked, what exactly would I have to wear to this dinner? Ji-min didn't answer immediately. Instead, a slow, unmistakably victorious smile spread across his face. Tracy narrowed her eyes, sighed dramatically. And don't misunderstand me. I wouldn't dream of it. This isn't a date. No. It's a performance. Correct. I'm doing this because you helped me. I know. And the second dinner is over, we're done. Ji-min inclined his head. Agreed. Something about how easily he accepted her conditions made Tracy suspicious. That was too easy. Saturday evening arrived far sooner than Tracy would have liked. She stood in front of the mirror in her apartment, smoothing invisible wrinkles from the satin dress she'd reluctantly bought the day before. The elegant off-the-shoulder gown hugged her athletic figure without being overly formal, and she had paired it with simple silver earrings, matching heels, and a sleek low bun that showed off her high cheekbones. She hardly recognized herself. Her roommate Hannah circled her with a whistle. Professor Ji-min is going to forget how to breathe. Tracy rolled her eyes. He is not. Oh, he absolutely is. Hannah. What? This isn't a real date. I know. I'm helping him avoid an arranged marriage. I know. Hannah grinned. And fake dating is how half the romance novels start. Tracy threw a cushion at her. Stop reading those books, you'll thank me later. I doubt it. Her phone buzzed. I'm outside. Ji-min. She grabbed her purse. If I'm not back by midnight. Hannah raised an eyebrow. Call the embassy? Both women burst into laughter. Outside, a sleek black sedan waited beneath the apartment lights. Ji-min stepped out as soon as he saw her. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit with a crisp white shirt and dark tie. His hair was neatly styled, and the cool evening breeze stirred a few loose strands across his forehead. He took one look at Tracy and stopped walking. For perhaps the first time since she'd met him, Professor Ji-min Young seemed completely speechless. She folded her arms. What? You look. He paused. Beautiful. The compliment caught her off guard. She cleared her throat. You clean up nicely yourself, Professor. It's Ji-min tonight. She nodded. Right. An awkward silence settled between them. Finally, Tracy broke it. So? Are we shaking hands? He blinked. What? I mean, if we're pretending to date, do fake couples shake hands before getting into cars? A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. I don't think so. Good. Why? Because that would have been weird. It certainly would have. She smiled despite herself. He walked around and opened the passenger door for her. You don't have to do that. I know. Then why are you? My mother notices everything. So we're practicing already? We are. She sighed as she climbed into the car. This is going to be exhausting. It probably will. The drive to his parents' estate took nearly 40 minutes. As the city lights gave way to quieter neighborhoods filled with luxury homes hidden behind towering gates, Tracy found herself growing increasingly nervous. She tried not to show it. So, she said casually, what exactly have you told them about me? Ji-min kept his eyes on the road. Very little. How little? I told them your name. Okay. That you're American. Fine. That you're finishing graduate studies. Also true. And, he hesitated. And, I told them we've been seeing each other for several months. Her head snapped toward him. You what? It was necessary. No, it wasn't. They would have asked why I'd never mentioned you. So you invented an entire relationship? I simplified events. You lied. I omitted details. She groaned loudly. I cannot believe I agreed to this. You haven't heard the worst part. There is a worse part? My grandmother loves asking personal questions. Oh, fantastic. And she has an excellent memory. Even better. So if you contradict yourself. She glared at him. I'll throw you under the bus. I expected as much. The car slowed before an enormous wrought iron gate. Security guards nodded respectfully as it opened. Beyond it stretched an estate so magnificent that Tracy forgot what she had been about to say. A long tree-lined driveway led to a breathtaking mansion illuminated by warm golden lights. Perfectly manicured gardens surrounded elegant fountains, while luxury cars already filled the circular driveway. Her jaw slowly dropped. You grew up here? Ji-min glanced at her reaction and smiled faintly. I did. She looked from the mansion to him. Then back again. You didn't tell me your family was billionaire rich. I didn't think it mattered. She laughed nervously. It matters now. The car came to a gentle stop in front of the grand entrance. Uniformed attendants hurried forward to open the doors. Ji-min stepped out first before offering Tracy his hand. She looked at it for a second. Then she took it. His fingers were warm and steady. He leaned in just enough for only her to hear. One last thing. What? My parents are difficult. I figured. My grandmother isn't. That's comforting. She's also impossible to fool. Tracy's stomach flipped. The massive front doors opened before them. Standing in the entrance hall were an elegantly dressed middle-aged couple. And an elderly woman with sparkling eyes and a knowing smile. The grandmother looked at Tracy, then at their joined hands. She chuckled. Oh, Ji-min. She turned to her son and daughter-in-law with a grin. I told you he wasn't bringing just any girl. Then she looked directly at Tracy. He's bringing the one he's already in love with. Tracy nearly stumbled on the first step. Tracy nearly stumbled on the first marble step. Her eyes darted to Ji-min, silently pleading for him to deny his grandmother's statement. He didn't. Instead, he simply cleared his throat and gently squeezed her hand, a subtle reminder to stay in character. Great. She hadn't even made it through the front door, and she already felt as though she'd walked onto the stage of a play without knowing her lines. The elegant elderly woman smiled warmly before stepping forward. Unlike the intimidating couple standing behind her, there wasn't a trace of judgment in her eyes. So, she said in accented but fluent English, you must be Tracy. Tracy smiled politely. And you must be Professor. Ji-min gave the slightest shake of his head. She caught herself immediately. I mean Ji-min's grandmother. The older woman laughed heartily. Good save. Heat rushed to Tracy's cheeks. I'm usually better at this. I hope so, the grandmother teased. Otherwise, tonight will be very entertaining. Ji-min's mother stepped forward next. She was graceful, impeccably dressed in a designer dress, every strand of her hair perfectly in place. Her smile was courteous but measured. Welcome to our home. Thank you for inviting me, Tracy replied. His father, dressed in a tailored navy suit, gave a respectful nod. We've heard quite a bit about you. Tracy almost choked. You have? Jimin answered before his father could. Only the important things. She shot him a quick glare. He pretended not to notice. Dinner was served in a formal dining room larger than Tracy's entire apartment. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, reflecting soft golden light across a table that seemed long enough to seat a small conference. Every place setting gleamed with polished silverware and delicate porcelain. Tracy quietly counted the forks. 5. Why did anyone need 5 forks? She whispered from the corner of her mouth. If I use the wrong one, will they arrest me? Jimin kept a perfectly straight face. I'll arrange legal representation. She bit back a laugh. Across the table, his grandmother noticed. What are you two whispering about? Jimin answered smoothly. She's threatening to steal the dessert. I absolutely am not. The grandmother chuckled. I like her already. Jimin's mother, however, watched every interaction with careful attention. So, Tracy, she began, folding her hands neatly, how did you and Jimin meet? There it was. The question. Tracy smiled. At the university. His father raised an eyebrow. As student and professor? Her heartbeat quickened. Well, Jimin spoke calmly. We met because of her research. Not technically a lie. His mother tilted her head. And when did research become romance? Tracy nearly inhaled her water. Jimin answered without hesitation. Gradually. She looked at him. Gradually? Really? He continued, we spent time discussing her academic work. His grandmother smiled knowingly. And then you realized you enjoyed talking about things other than academics. Jimin nodded. Something like that. Tracy forced herself to smile. He's actually much less serious outside class. His grandmother laughed. I knew it. His father looked unconvinced. She looked at him. Gradually? Really? He continued, we spent time discussing her academic work. His grandmother smiled knowingly. And then you realized you enjoyed talking about things other than academics. Jimin nodded. Something like that. Tracy forced herself to smile. He's actually much less serious outside class. His grandmother laughed. I knew it. His father looked unconvinced. I've never known my son to date anyone. Neither have we, his mother added. Jimin calmly reached for Tracy's glass before she could, refilling it without being asked. It was a simple gesture. Natural. Comfortable. His mother noticed. His grandmother definitely noticed. Tracy noticed too. As the main course arrived, the conversation shifted. His father asked about Tracy's family in America. She spoke fondly about her parents, who had encouraged her to study abroad despite worrying about her being so far from home. His grandmother asked about American food. Tracy enthusiastically described fried chicken, sweet potato pie, cornbread, and barbecue so vividly that the elderly woman declared she wanted to visit the United States immediately. Even Jimin laughed. His mother asked about Tracy's future plans. I'd like to build my career here for a while, Tracy admitted. I've grown to love South Korea. Despite our winters? Jimin asked. She shivered dramatically. Those are acts of violence. His grandmother burst into laughter. So honest. Jimin's father surprised everyone by smiling. You remind me of my wife when she was young. His wife looked at him. I complained about the weather? You complained about everything. I still do. The table erupted into laughter. The atmosphere relaxed. Even Tracy's nerves began to fade. Dessert had just been served when Jimin's grandmother suddenly leaned forward. So, everyone looked at her. When are you two getting married? Tracy nearly dropped her spoon. Jimin closed his eyes for the briefest moment. His mother looked interested. His father looked expectant. The grandmother smiled sweetly. Well? Tracy forced a nervous laugh. We haven't. She searched desperately for words. Really talked about that. Oh. The grandmother said innocently. I assumed that's where this was heading. Jimin calmly placed his hand over Tracy's beneath the table. The unexpected touch steadied her racing nerves. His thumb brushed lightly against the back of her hand, just enough to reassure her without drawing attention. Then he answered quietly. We're taking things one step at a time. The grandmother studied the two of them for a long moment. Then she smiled again. A wise answer. But the sparkle in her eyes told Tracy something unsettling. The old woman wasn't convinced. She wasn't fooled either. She was watching them far too closely, almost as if she were waiting for the truth to reveal itself on its own. By the time dessert plates were cleared away, Tracy was convinced she had survived the hardest part of the evening. She couldn't have been more wrong. As one of the house staff collected the last of the dishes, Ji-min's mother smiled pleasantly. Why don't we all move into the sitting room? Coffee is always better there. Tracy forced a smile. That sounds lovely. In reality, she wanted to go home, kick off her heels, and pretend this entire evening had never happened. The sitting room was every bit as elegant as the dining room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a beautifully landscaped garden illuminated by soft lanterns, while shelves lined with books and family photographs gave the room a warmer feel than the formal dining area. Everyone settled into plush sofas. Ji-min sat beside Tracy, close enough that their shoulders occasionally brushed. She ignored the strange flutter in her stomach every time it happened. His grandmother, however, noticed everything. So, Tracy, she said with a mischievous smile, tell me something my grandson doesn't know about you. Ji-min looked amused. I'm curious too. Tracy crossed one leg over the other. Well, I sing. Ji-min turned to her. You do? She shrugged. In the shower. His grandmother clapped her hands. Oh, we should hear her. No, Tracy answered immediately. Ji-min chuckled. I agree. She looked at him in mock offense. Excuse me? I've heard people who only sing in the shower. They're usually protecting the public. His grandmother burst into laughter. Tracy nudged him with her elbow. I thought you were supposed to be on my side. I am. You're terrible at it. I'm learning. The easy banter filled the room with laughter, and for a few precious moments, everything felt surprisingly natural. Almost real. Later, Ji-min's father excused himself to answer an important business call. His mother followed one of the housekeepers to check on preparations for an upcoming charity event. That left only Ji-min, Tracy, and his grandmother in the sitting room. The elderly woman looked from one to the other before smiling knowingly. I suddenly remembered I need to speak with the chef. Tracy had the distinct feeling that was a lie. Before either of them could respond, the grandmother stood, patted Ji-min's shoulder, and quietly left the room. Silence settled between them. Tracy exhaled. I think your grandmother is terrifying. Ji-min smiled. Most people underestimate her. I won't be making that mistake. You've already passed her first test. She frowned. There was a test? She wanted to see whether you would try too hard to impress everyone. I wasn't trying. I know. You know what I was trying to do? Survive. She laughed. Exactly. Their laughter faded into a comfortable silence. Outside, the garden lights reflected softly against the windows. For the first time all evening, there were no questions. No pretending. No audience. Just the two of them. Tracy looked around the enormous room. You know? What? I thought people this rich would be colder. Ji-min leaned back in his chair. My parents have their moments. They certainly have questions. They've been waiting years for me to introduce someone. She glanced sideways at him. Have you really never brought anyone home? No. Not even once? He shook his head. My work has always come first. And now? He looked at her for a moment before answering. I'm reconsidering that. The words were quiet. Almost casual. Yet something about the way he said them made Tracy's heart skip. She quickly looked away. You're saying all the right things for this performance. I'm not performing right now. She looked back at him. His expression had changed. Gone was the calm professor who always seemed in control. Instead, he looked thoughtful. Almost vulnerable. Before she could ask what he meant, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Ji-min's parents returned. His father resumed his seat, studying the two of them with an unreadable expression. His mother smiled politely. I hope we didn't interrupt. Not at all, Ji-min replied. His grandmother entered a moment later carrying a small velvet photo album. Oh good, she said brightly. I found these. Ji-min immediately frowned. Grandmother? She ignored him. I thought Tracy might enjoy seeing Ji-min's childhood pictures. Tracy's eyes lit up. Oh, I absolutely would. Jimin sighed. Please don't. Too late. His grandmother had already opened the album. The very first photograph showed a 6-year-old Jimin wearing oversized round glasses, a tiny bow tie, and an expression of complete misery while holding a violin almost as tall as he was. Tracy covered her mouth. Oh. Jimin closed his eyes. No. She looked from the picture to the man sitting beside her. You were adorable. I was unfortunate. His grandmother laughed. He hated violin lessons. I still do. Another picture showed him missing his 2 front teeth. Another showed him asleep on a stack of books. Then one of him crying after falling into a muddy pond. Tracy couldn't stop laughing. I can't believe this is you. Jimin rubbed his forehead. I was hoping these photos had disappeared. They're priceless, his grandmother declared. She turned another page. Then paused. Her smile softened. This was taken the day Jimin graduated from university. The room grew quieter. The young man in the photograph looked proud, but lonely. Standing beside him were only his parents and grandmother. No friends. No girlfriend. No celebration beyond family. Tracy looked at the picture, then at Jimin. You worked that hard? He shrugged. I enjoyed studying. His grandmother gently corrected him. He buried himself in work. She reached over and patted his hand. My grandson has always been surrounded by people. Her eyes met Tracy's. Yet somehow he's always been alone. The words lingered in the room. Tracy found herself looking at Jimin differently. Not as the intimidating professor. Not as the wealthy heir. But as a man who had spent so much of his life fulfilling expectations that he had forgotten what it felt like to simply live. For reasons she couldn't explain, her heart ached for him. By the time Jimin drove Tracy back to her apartment, it was well past 10 o'clock. Neither of them spoke much during the drive. The silence wasn't awkward. It was thoughtful. The evening had started as an agreement between a professor and a desperate student. Somewhere between dinner, childhood photographs, and his grandmother's quiet observations, the lines had blurred in ways Tracy wasn't ready to examine. The car came to a stop outside her apartment building. For a moment, neither of them reached for the door. Tracy finally broke the silence. So? I survived. Jimin smiled. You did. Barely. I warned you my family asks difficult questions. You forgot to mention your grandmother is basically a human lie detector. A soft laugh escaped him. That's accurate. Tracy turned toward him, shaking her head. I still can't believe she almost had me discussing wedding dates. My apologies. Oh no. An apology isn't enough. It isn't? She pointed a finger at him. You owe me. His eyebrow rose. What would you like? She pretended to think deeply. Unlimited coffee. Done. And lunch. Done. And, she grinned mischievously. You have to stop looking so calm all the time. It's irritating. I'm afraid that's beyond my control. She laughed, then reached for the door handle. Good night, Jimin. The sound of his name on her lips made him pause. It was the first time she had said it naturally without correcting herself. Good night, Tracy. She stepped out of the car, waved once, and disappeared into the apartment building. Jimin waited until the lobby doors closed behind her before quietly driving away. He didn't notice the student standing across the street with a phone raised just long enough to snap 2 photographs. One captured Tracy climbing out of his car. The other showed Jimin watching her until she was safely inside. Monday morning arrived with all the usual chaos of the final weeks before graduation. Students hurried between lectures carrying coffee cups, laptops, and stacks of notes. Tracy walked across campus feeling lighter than she had in days. The investigation into her capstone project was underway, and for the first time since discovering her name had been removed, she believed everything would work out. Then she noticed people staring. Not 1 or 2. Dozens. Some whispered to each other. Others looked at her and quickly looked away. One student openly gasped. Why is everyone acting weird? Tracy muttered. As she entered the business building, her best friend and classmate, Nia Brooks, came rushing toward her with wide eyes. Nia, another American exchange student, grabbed Tracy's wrist before she could say a word. We have a problem. What happened? You tell me. I have no idea what you're talking about. Nia pulled out her phone. Then explain this. She turned the screen around. Tracy froze. There, on an anonymous campus gossip forum, were the photographs from Saturday night. One showed Ji-min opening the passenger door for her. Another showed them walking toward his family's mansion with their hands linked. A third captured him looking at her with a soft expression that was impossible to explain away. The headline above the pictures read, "Young professor secretly dating final-year student?" Underneath, hundreds of comments were already pouring in. I knew something was going on. No way he looked at her like that for no reason. Isn't she one of his supervisors? This could become a huge scandal. She's probably getting special treatment. Tracy felt her stomach drop. This is bad. It's terrible, Nia whispered. Who took these? No idea. Tracy rubbed her temples. This wasn't supposed to happen. What wasn't? She immediately regretted saying that. Nia folded her arms. Tracy, what do you mean it wasn't supposed to happen? Before Tracy could answer, another familiar voice interrupted. Miss Cobbs. Every muscle in her body tensed. She slowly turned around. Professor Ji-min Young stood at the end of the hallway. His expression was calm, but there was a seriousness in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Several students immediately stopped walking to watch. The whispers grew louder. Ji-min looked briefly at the students, then back at Tracy. My office. He spoke in the same professional tone he always used on campus. Now, without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away. Nia looked from Tracy to the retreating professor. You'd better tell me everything later. Tracy sighed. I know. She squared her shoulders and followed Ji-min through the crowded hallway. The whispers followed them every step of the way. By the time she entered his office and closed the door behind her, she already knew one thing. Their simple fake dating arrangement had just become far more complicated, and neither of them could afford to make another mistake. The moment the office door clicked shut behind Tracy, the noise from the hallway disappeared. For the first time that morning, there was silence. Ji-min stood beside the window with his back to her, one hand tucked into the pocket of his charcoal slacks. His laptop was open on the desk, but it was obvious he hadn't been working. He had been waiting for her. Tracy folded her arms. I suppose you've seen it. I have. The entire university has probably seen it. I imagine so. She let out a frustrated sigh and dropped into the chair opposite his desk. This is exactly why I said fake dating your professor was a terrible idea. Ji-min turned to face her. You weren't wrong. She blinked. You're agreeing with me? I generally do when you're right. For some reason, that only made her more annoyed. She stood again and began pacing. I don't understand people. They enjoy gossip. They don't even know what happened. They rarely need facts. She stopped pacing and looked at him. They're saying I only got good grades because of you. I know. They're saying I'm sleeping with my professor. I know. They're saying I manipulated you. I know. Her shoulders slumped. I've spent 4 years proving myself. Her voice cracked despite her best efforts. And now everyone thinks I cheated my way to graduation. Ji-min watched her quietly. You know that's not true. I know. But they don't. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he walked over and placed a folder on the desk. The investigation is finished. She stared at it. Already? The committee met this morning. With trembling hands she opened the folder. Inside was the official report. Her teammates had admitted to removing her name after being confronted with the digital submission history, message records, and version logs. The committee had ruled unanimously in her favor. Her authorship had been fully restored. Her teammates had each received disciplinary sanctions for academic misconduct. Tears filled Tracy's eyes before she could stop them. She laughed shakily. I actually won. You did. They believed me. They believed the evidence. She looked down at the report again, unable to stop smiling. Months of anxiety dissolved in an instant. When she finally looked up, Ji-min was still watching her. With relief. You were worried, she said softly. I was. For me? Of course. The words slipped out so naturally that neither of them seemed to realize what had been said until a heartbeat later. Tracy looked away first. Thank you. You earned it. No. She shook her head. I mean, thank you for believing me when everyone else probably would have assumed I was guilty. He leaned lightly against the edge of his desk. I never assumed that. Why? His answer came without hesitation. Because it didn't fit the person I know. She swallowed. You don't know me that well? I know enough. Silence settled between them again. This time it felt different. Warmer. Dangerously comfortable. Finally, Tracy cleared her throat. So? What do we do about? She gestured vaguely toward the hallway. All that? Ji-min's expression became thoughtful. We continue behaving exactly as we always have. She frowned. You think the rumors will disappear? No. Then? We give people nothing else to speculate about. She nodded slowly. Professional. Always. She smiled faintly. I liked you better when you were pretending to be my boyfriend. The words escaped before she could stop them. Her eyes widened. Oh my gosh. She slapped a hand over her mouth. I did not just say that. For the first time since she'd met him, Professor Ji-min Young looked genuinely caught off guard. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not the quiet chuckle she had heard before. A real laugh. Warm and deep. Completely unguarded. Tracy stared at him. I can't believe it. What? You actually laugh. He shook his head, still smiling. You surprise me. I surprise myself. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, the office seemed to disappear around them. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them looked away. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Ji-min straightened immediately. Come in. The department secretary stepped inside. Professor, the dean is ready to see you. I'll be there shortly. She nodded politely before leaving. The moment the door closed again, Ji-min's professional expression returned. You should head to your afternoon seminar. Tracy nodded. Right. She picked up the investigation folder and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, she looked back. Ji-min? Yes? I'm glad you caught me that day. He held her gaze for a long second. So am I. She smiled to herself and stepped into the hallway. Neither of them noticed the dean standing farther down the corridor. He had seen Tracy leaving Ji-min's office. And judging by the thoughtful expression on his face, the rumors were no longer confined to students alone. The rest of the semester passed more quietly than Tracy had expected. The rumors never disappeared completely, but they gradually lost momentum. The university's official decision regarding the capstone project became public within the department, making it clear that Tracy had been the victim of academic misconduct, not the perpetrator. While some students still whispered whenever she walked by, many of those who had believed the gossip now avoided her out of embarrassment. Her 3 former teammates received disciplinary action and were required to submit formal apologies to both the department and Tracy. She accepted the written apologies with polite indifference. Forgiveness, she decided, didn't always require friendship. What surprised her most was Ji-min. He never once treated her differently in public. Whenever they crossed paths on campus, he addressed her exactly as he did every other student. Good morning, Miss Cobbs. Good morning, Professor. Nothing more. No lingering conversations. No secret smiles. No opportunities for fresh gossip. At first, Tracy found it irritating. Then she understood why. He was protecting both of them. Graduation week arrived in a blur of excitement. Students posed for photographs beneath blooming cherry trees, families filled the campus with laughter, and colorful bouquets appeared in every corner of the university. Tracy stood outside the auditorium wearing her graduation gown over a fitted white dress, her mortarboard balanced carefully on her neatly styled curls. A blue and gold honor cord rested around her neck, recognizing her outstanding academic performance. She smiled as her parents fussed over her. Her mother adjusted the stole for what felt like the 10th time. Hold still. It's straight, Mom. It was. It still is. Her father laughed as he held up his camera. Just let your mother win. I'm surrounded. You always have been, her mother replied proudly before pulling her into a hug. We're so proud of you. Tears pricked Tracy's eyes. So am I. Inside the auditorium, graduates lined up according to the department. As Tracy waited for the ceremony to begin, she noticed Ji-min standing with the other faculty members near the stage. He wore formal academic robes over a dark suit, looking every bit the composed young professor she had first met months ago. He didn't look at her. Not once. She shouldn't have cared. Yet for some reason she did. When Tracy's name echoed through the auditorium. Tracy Danielle Cobbs, Bachelor of Business Administration with honors. The applause felt almost unreal. She walked confidently across the stage, accepted her diploma, and shook hands with the university president. As she turned toward the audience, her eyes instinctively searched the faculty line. For just a brief second, Ji-min smiled. It wasn't the reserved smile he wore during lectures. It was warmer. Proud. Only a heartbeat long before his professional expression returned. Still, it was enough. After the ceremony, the campus became a sea of cameras, flowers, and emotional reunions. Tracy's parents insisted on taking dozens of photographs. One near the library. One beneath the university sign. One beside the fountain. One with every professor willing to stop long enough. As Tracy laughed through yet another picture, someone called her name. Miss Cobbs. She turned. Ji-min stood several feet away, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Her parents looked between them. You must be Professor Ji, Tracy's father said warmly. Ji-min bowed politely. Professor Ji-min Young. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Cobbs. Your daughter has been an exceptional student. Tracy's mother beamed. Thank you for looking after her. It was my privilege. Her father extended a hand, which Ji-min shook. We appreciate everything you've done. Ji-min inclined his head. She earned every achievement herself. The words filled Tracy with quiet pride. Even now, he refused to let anyone think her success had come from favoritism. After a few minutes, her parents wandered off to admire a nearby flower display. For the first time since graduation, Tracy and Ji-min stood alone. Neither spoke immediately. Finally, Ji-min broke the silence. Congratulations. She smiled. I made it. You did. I'm officially no longer your student. No. A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. You aren't. She tilted her head. Feels strange. It does. Another brief silence settled between them. Then Ji-min reached into the inside pocket of his academic robe and carefully removed a small white envelope. I wanted to give you this. She accepted it curiously. Can I open it now? You may. Inside was a simple card. Written neatly across the front were the words. Dinner. No pretending this time. Below it was a date. The following Friday evening. No university. No family. Just dinner. Tracy looked up. He was watching her carefully, almost nervously. I've waited a long time to ask. Her heart skipped. What do you mean? Ji-min took a slow breath. Until today you were my student. She nodded. I would never have crossed that line. His voice remained calm, but she could hear the sincerity behind every word. Now that you've graduated. He met her eyes. There's something I've wanted to tell you for months. Tracy's pulse quickened. Before he could continue, her mother called from across the lawn. Tracy? Family picture. She glanced toward her parents, then back at Ji-min. He smiled gently. Go. What about? We have dinner next Friday. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll be there. As she walked toward her family, she couldn't stop wondering what he had been about to say. Behind her, Ji-min watched her leave with a quiet smile. At last, he no longer had to hide how he felt. All he had to do now was hope she felt the same. The entire week after graduation passed in a haze. Tracy had imagined that finishing university would feel like crossing a finish line, but instead it felt as though she were standing at the beginning of something she couldn't quite name. She had officially completed her degree. Her parents had returned to the United States. She had accepted an offer to begin work with an international consulting firm in Seoul later that summer. Everything she had worked toward was finally falling into place. And yet the only thing she could think about was Friday evening. More specifically, what Professor No Ji-min had almost said before her mother interrupted him. Every possible explanation crossed her mind. Maybe he simply wanted to thank her for helping him survive the family dinner. Maybe he wanted to apologize for the fake dating arrangement. Maybe he wanted to stay friends. She refused to let herself imagine anything more. Whenever her thoughts wandered too far, she reminded herself that she had watched too many romantic dramas since moving to South Korea. Real life wasn't like that. Was it? Friday arrived with clear skies and a gentle summer breeze. After changing outfits 3 times, Tracy finally settled on a light blue knee-length dress with a fitted waist and short sleeves. She paired it with nude heels and simple pearl earrings, choosing elegance over extravagance. She looked at herself in the mirror. "You're just having dinner," she muttered. "Stop acting like it's a first date." Her reflection didn't look convincing. Ji-min was already waiting when she arrived at the quiet riverside restaurant overlooking the Han River. He wore a navy blazer over a white shirt with the sleeves casually rolled to his forearms, looking much less like a professor and more like a man enjoying a peaceful evening. The moment he saw her, he stood. She smiled. "I hope I'm not late." "You're exactly on time. You've always been punctual. I learned from watching my favorite student." She laughed. "I can't believe you just admitted you had a favorite." "I believe I did. You know professors aren't supposed to say that." Fortunately, he pulled out her chair before she sat. "I'm simply Ji-min now." For the first time, hearing him say it didn't feel strange. It felt right. Dinner was surprisingly easy. They talked about everything except the university. Tracy shared stories about growing up in Chicago, where her loud family could turn an ordinary Sunday dinner into a neighborhood event. Ji-min admitted that although he had grown up surrounded by wealth, his happiest memories involved quiet evenings cooking with his grandmother rather than attending formal galas with his parents. They laughed about cultural misunderstandings Tracy had experienced during her first year in Korea. She reminded him of the day she had accidentally bowed to a vending machine after someone handed her a drink. "I was trying to be polite." "I know." "You laughed." "I did." "You nearly fell over laughing." "It was memorable." She pointed her fork at him. "I almost transferred universities because of that. I would have missed you." The words slipped out so naturally that both of them paused. Ji-min set down his glass. "I suppose this is the right time." Tracy's heart began to pound. He looked directly at her. "I owe you the truth." She nodded silently. "The night I caught you in my office." "I remember," she said with a smile. "I had already noticed you long before that." Her smile faded. "What?" "I knew who you were during your first semester." She blinked. "My first semester?" "You asked more questions than anyone else." "I was confused." "You challenged my lectures." "I thought your examples were outdated." "They were." She laughed softly. "I can't believe you're admitting that." "You made me revise 2 weeks of material." "I remember." "I was annoyed." "Were you?" "At first." He smiled. "Then I realized you weren't trying to embarrass me." "I wasn't. You genuinely wanted to understand." She listened quietly as he continued. "I started paying attention." Her heartbeat quickened. "I noticed how you stayed behind after class to help classmates who were struggling." "I just wanted everyone to pass." "I know." "I noticed you volunteered for university events even when nobody asked." He paused. "I noticed you stood up for students who were being ignored." Tracy looked down at the table. "You noticed all that?" "I noticed much more than I should have." Silence settled between them. The sounds of the river drifted softly through the open windows. Ji-min took a slow breath. "I tried very hard not to think about you outside the classroom." Her eyes lifted to his. "I reminded myself every day that you were my student." His voice remained steady, but there was unmistakable emotion behind it now. "So I kept my distance. I never wanted to place you in an uncomfortable position. I never wanted anyone to question your achievements. And I never wanted my feelings to influence your education." Tracy felt tears sting her eyes. He had waited. Not because he didn't care. Because he cared enough to do the right thing. Ji-min smiled gently. "Then fate decided you would break into my office." She burst into laughter through her tears. "Please don't remind me. I don't think I'll ever forget it. I was trying to fix my paper." "I know." "You look so calm." "I wasn't." She frowned. "You weren't?" "No." He laughed quietly. "I spent the entire conversation wondering why my heart was beating so fast." She stared at him. "You mean?" He nodded. "I'd already fallen for you." Her breath caught. "I thought spending time together for that ridiculous fake relationship would help those feelings disappear." He smiled to himself. It had exactly the opposite effect. He leaned forward slightly. So today, with no classroom between us, no university rules holding either of us back, and no pretending, he met her eyes. Tracy Cobbs, would you allow me the chance to take you on a real first date? For several seconds, she simply looked at him. Then she laughed softly, shaking her head. You know. What? You could have just asked me to dinner. He smiled. I know. But then we wouldn't have such an unbelievable story to tell. She reached across the table and gently took his hand. Her smile was warm, genuine, and filled with quiet certainty. I'd love to go on a real first date with you. Ji-min's answering smile was brighter than any she had ever seen. For months they had played the roles of a couple. Now at last neither of them had to pretend anymore.
Thank you for watching. If you truly enjoyed this story, please drop your comments in the comment section, like the video, share and subscribe to our channel.